Krishna's description of Kshatriya duties in the Bhagavad Gita is indeed linked to the Varna system. In verses like 1843, he outlines qualities, such as heroism, determination, and leadership, that are meant for those naturally inclined toward the warrior role. Traditionally, these duties are associated with the Kshatriya Varna, which is defined not just by birth, but also by inherent qualities, Guṇas. While many traditional commentaries explain that a person's Varna is determined by these intrinsic qualities, making the system more about nature than strictly hereditary birth, Krishna's instructions still delineate a specific social role. Essentially, he's advising that one should perform the duty that corresponds to one's inherent nature. What, in the Vedic context, is seen as one's Varna duty? In summary, yes, when Krishna talks about Kshatriya duties, he is referring to the system of Varna and the specific responsibilities that come with being a Kshatriya. Traditional interpretations based on the Vedic scriptures do indeed ground karma yoga within the framework of svadharma, one's own duty, as determined by one's inherent qualities, gunas, and traditionally one's varna, social class. In this view, as laid out in texts like the Bhagavad Gita, verses 18:41-44, and explained by commentators such as Adi Shankara, Madhvacharya, and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the practice of karma yoga is closely linked to fulfilling the duties assigned by one's natural constitution, and in the traditional context, one's birth in a specific varna. Modern scholars, however, often interpret karma yoga more universally as selfless action without attachment to results, a path that can be followed by anyone, regardless of caste or social background. They argue that the essence of karma yoga is about internal detachment and selfless service, not necessarily about adhering to a rigid, birth-based Varna system. That said, if we adhere strictly to the Vedic and classical commentarial traditions, the practice of karma yoga is indeed rooted in the notion of performing one's svadharma, as defined by one's innate qualities, which historically has been associated with the Varna system. From this perspective, the argument goes that in order to properly practice karma yoga in a way that leads to liberation, moksha, one must perform the duty appropriate to one's nature as delineated by the Vedas. So, while modern interpretations advocate a more inclusive and universal practice of selfless action, traditional Vedic interpretations maintain that karma yoga is ideally practiced within the context of the Varna system and is supported by the scriptural injunctions found in texts like the Bhagavad Gita and its commentaries. In summary, according to the traditional Vedic framework, karma yoga is intimately connected with svadharma as determined by one's inherent nature and, historically, one's varna. Modern reinterpretations may set aside these external markers, but they depart from the classical scriptural backing provided by the Vedas and traditional commentaries. This view, that the classical approach does require support from Vedic scriptures and the Varna framework, is rooted in texts like Bhagavad Gita 18.41-44 and is defended by many traditional commentators.